Or any other questions? In between? No? Cool. Okay. Hey Rich, what's up?
Hey.
My name's Taylor, if you guys don't know me. I am steering committee for Long Island Activists. I'm part of Huntington Young Democrats on the Huntington Town Democratic Committee. Wear too many hats. I'm also a master's student at Stony Brook at doing atmospheric science.
And you're a Mets fan.
More, yeah, that's that. You're gonna have
Move along, Taylor.
Thanks, better for my health.
We can be tortured together.
I'm wearing an Islanders jersey, so you know. Anyways, okay, so I have a question for you.
Yes.
You're probably gonna know what I'm gonna ask, but who here? Does everybody here know what the designating convention is? What a designating convention is? No? Okay. Rich, do you want to explain it real quick?
Sure. So designated convention meets, whether it be the county designated convention or the town designated convention, all the committee people are elected as committee people, and then they can vote to designate candidates for various offices. And Taylor's referencing Huntington,
Yep.
Town Democratic Committee convention back in May, which designated candidates. And Darrell St. George is here tonight. He's running as a primary challenger to Tracy Edwards. Tracy was the designated candidate by the committee people out of the convention. So that's in the bylaws. The committee is able to designate candidates, and that's how we send the petitions out. Sometimes we don't have a designated candidate. For example, in the congressional district last year, both Anna and Dave wanted to run. I met with them several times to see if we could come to an agreement behind one candidate. It didn't work. And so they went out and we gave out the petitions, and we allowed committee people to pick whichever candidate they wanted to support. They both got on the ballot. Obviously, there was a primary.
Yep. Okay. So,
It's a nominating
It's a nominating, yes.
yes.
So basically, the reason why, so the argument is if you get Democrats together sooner and you don't have a primary, you have more time to organize beforehand to fight the Republicans.
Right.
Or whomever is going to be set up. The problem is this is more or less inherently undemocratic in the sense that you're putting weight behind a candidate. Now, for me personally, I don't have any ill will towards the candidates in Huntington or for anywhere else for that matter. That everybody has their own preferences, and I am friends close with people who are Tracy Edwards supporters for an example. Basically, my perspective is a designating convention is a process which inherently attempts to stop a primary of seats up for election, often with that excuse of unity. So how do you perceive a process like this to be small d democratic that purposely tries to limit new challengers and stifle choice and competition for the voters? The big issue is that a lot of these voters in Huntington who aren't part of the committee, there's a lot of Democrats, more than I'm happy to admit, that voted for Trump. I doubt any Democrat in that committee voted for Trump. It's not necessarily representative of the people in the town. So why?
Yeah, and we're gonna look at that because you brought the point up to me that night. So we're gonna look at that.
I think that it would be a really good idea.
And you and I have further conversation on that.
Good. I'm happy to hear that because it's something that should be.
Well, you're a fellow Mets fan, so.
And an Islanders fan. You should start watching hockey.
So just to
I
piggyback
get enough body checks during the day. So.
Just to piggyback off of that, so one of the interesting results of that is that what you were just saying about Darrell, and full disclosure, my organization has endorsed Darrell, but this is totally like a separate issue. When you just described Darrell, you described him as a primary challenger to Tracy Edwards, the language of which gives the sound of someone challenging an incumbent rather than two people vying equally in a primary for one seat.
apologize.
But that's, I mean, I don't think it was intentional, but that's what the nominating conventions create. They give the feeling of incumbency when one didn't exist, and then the media, the Newsday already had reported that Tracy Edwards was the candidate, as opposed to there is a primary. So that's something to consider.
We got a lot of people up for this here. So the reason why I bring this up is because we're here because we want democracy. We want people to make these decisions. We don't want people in backroom deals to make these decisions. Make it publicly available, these bylaws, because it's not easy to get access to these bylaws, both in the town.
Well, we've got it for you.
Yeah, I asked you, but not everybody's as connected as I am to you, so. Even though
anybody send me an email.
everybody here, text him right now.
Yeah, listen, no, it's easy to send me an email because then I can just forward it. But anybody who wants the bylaws can have the bylaws.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Taylor.
Thanks, Taylor.
Gloria Mason, I'm from Lindenhurst.
How are you?
I'd like to follow up on Fran's questions. Wasn't this lawsuit
criminal investigation, and the criminal investigation by the Manhattan DA's office was ended, but the investigation is still ongoing with the New York State Board of Elections. So I'm still a potential witness in that matter, which is a civil matter. If you want, you can speak to my attorney. I didn't want to have to spend the money I had to spend on an attorney, but I had to. It couldn't be. It wasn't from the party. It was myself personally. So
Okay.
I didn't want to be involved in it, but unfortunately I am because they tried to send me the money.
Okay, to go back to cross endorsements. If you make all these deals with conservative and independent parties to make sure you can elect candidates, why weren't you able to make a deal for Vinnie DeMarco?
Because Vinny decided he wasn't running. They were not going to endorse him because they were against it. The minor parties. They said they wouldn't endorse him. So I said, Vinny, you could run on one line, which would be the Democratic line. And he said, no, I'm not going to run.
Okay.
So.
One more question. Are you getting the impression that we don't like cross endorsements?
By the way, if New York State was a one-line state, it would make my job a whole lot easier. So I'm not going to say I don't like them, but I can tell you that I would be able to spend more time weeding my garden or doing something else on a Sunday as opposed to meeting with minor parties if we were a one-line state. And if you look at the numbers, we would probably win about 75% of the races in Suffolk County.
If New York State was to go that way, would you?
Absolutely.
Endorse
In fact, the Democrats missed an opportunity, and I told them they missed an opportunity in 2010 when they controlled the governor's office, the state assembly, and the state senate. And there was a moment in time when they could have passed that law, and they didn't. I'm not going to blame any one of the minor parties, but both of the strong minor parties spoke up and said, no, don't do it. Both the conservative and the working families party. And I'm not criticizing any party, but that I thought was going to make my job a lot easier. Because if I just had to run candidates on the Democratic line and the committee had to run candidates on the Democratic line, we'd be a whole lot better off.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing? Good, how are you? It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you.
Sure.
I think like many others have expressed, many Democrats, you know, a lot of things changed for me on November 8th, 2016. You know.
I can tell by your t-shirt.
Sort of a day that will live in infamy. Along with October 28th, that was the day of the Comey letter, but I digress. But I just want to say a few things. It's funny, you mentioned a friend of yours who was interested in, I feel that as I'm new to politics, new to trying to get involved myself, even I feel a little self-conscious in saying that, but like your friend, I've considered running for office. I am considering running against Peter King, which seems like a big limp for me as I've never had office before, but there you go. I think it feels like different times after what happened, so that's all I'm saying with that.
Okay.
Now, just one, actually, you mentioned, I could probably call you about that too, right? You said you were.
Yeah, give me a call.
I'm sorry, is there a question?
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
were looking up to it. But in any case, well, it's kind of a question, I guess, more a homily perhaps. But, I'm all for being a progressive party, and I'm glad the Democrats are more liberal today than they were in the 90s, even though I thought Bill Clinton gets a more dream by some people. But I will say this, I think Obama made a good point. We're a Big Tent party, unlike the Republicans who are a Tea Party where everything's purist. And, Obama said, we can agree as Democrats on 90-95% of the thing. We don't have to, literally agree on 110% or else it's civil war or something. So, I go on Facebook like everybody else. I just feel like we should get away from litmus test politics.
Give me a call, Mike, we can talk further.
Okay, that's just my thought.
Thank you.
Good evening. How are you? My name is Michael Como. I am also on Steering for Long Island Activists. I was a Sanders 2016 delegate for CD3. And my question actually relates to something that was published earlier, I believe yesterday in Newsday, where it had quoted you as saying that you are very much still in support of the IDC. That's the Independent Democratic Caucus. It's an organization that caucuses, in name, is in fact a Democratic caucus, but does caucus with the state Senate Republicans.
Boo, if I may add. Boo.
You surely can. And so my question here actually relates to recent proceedings that occurred at the New York State Democratic meeting. So the bylaws meeting that occurred just a couple of weeks ago, in which the New York State Progressive Caucus also paired up with a number of other elected officials to condemn the IDC, who many feel are in fact the biggest stumbling block for the passage of the New York Health Act, so there's the New York Single Payer Act. In light of the IDC's efforts to block what could be a great boon to the overall public health of people in the state of New York, what is your present opinion on the IDC? And I say this from the vantage point of somebody who has been on numerous occasions called a not Democrat, in part because of my support for the senator from Vermont. So as to say that divisiveness has become a very important topic within the party. Yet I see that there are a great many folks who have lined up behind the IDC, and I think that if there are questions of purity or what have you, we really ought to be exploring those who are in fact blockading what is overwhelmingly popular legislation within the party. So your opinion?
So my opinion right now, so that quote that was used in the article was a quote from 2012.
Is it still current?
So I'm going to answer the question.
Please do.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
So now we're going to have an opportunity if Phil Boyle wins, and I've been in discussions with the Senate Democrats about candidate selection as well as the Working Families Party. I've asked them to come forward with names. If you saw, there were a bunch of names mentioned for that position. Several elected officials, including former elected official Pat Halpin, who's here tonight. I don't have a position on the IDC. As it exists now, the reason why I supported, just to tell you why I supported the IDC, was because in 2009, they passed something called the MTA tax, which caused us to lose a very bright young man who was a county legislator at the time from Brookhaven named Brian Biedenbender. And Brian had nothing to do with the MTA tax, but the Republicans ran the campaign against him based on the support of the Democrats in the state Senate and the state Assembly. And so that really annoyed me. When I had discussions with the leadership, they said, well, we had to do that. And I said, well, you're not taking into consideration our concerns out here and what our residents want. And so they kind of blew us off. And I said, well, then we're going to support candidates who support the suburban agenda, which was very important to us at the time, as opposed to candidates who are going to support the general consensus out of the caucus. That has continued through several leaders, 2 of which have gone to jail since the beginning of the Democrats, Malcolm Smith and John Sampson. Now we're dealing with 2 leaders who are very credible, and Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Mike Gianaris, who runs the campaign side of the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee. I spoke to Mike this morning, so I'm working with him, and I met with Lisa Tyson last week. She is the head of the Long Island Progressive Coalition, but also she stands in as the director of the Long Island Working Families Party, and so we're working with them to come up with a candidate.
This is to say, what is your present position on the IDC? I mean, is it something that you're intending on supporting? And broadly speaking, what is your position on the New York Health Act?
So I just told you my position on the IDC is I'm supporting a candidate who's going to get elected and sit with the Democrats,
right?
Not the IDC.
Right.
So now I need to come up with that candidate.
Sure.
And that's why I'm asking if any of you have a candidate. You saw names mentioned in the paper. Those are people who have not fully committed or said that they're interested, but I'm in the process of talking to them. In fact, one other name came up and I saw her walk in, Kim Jean-Pierre, who's our assemblywoman from Babylon. But if you have another name of somebody who you think would be a strong candidate, send that person my way ASAP, because this election could either be in November, this November, it could be a special in February or March, or it could be on the ballot next November, which is more time. I don't have a position on the New York Health Act. I met with Ron and got some information, so I don't have a current position on it myself. That doesn't mean that a candidate who's going to run, because I'm not running for the state Senate. They asked me to run for the seat. I live in the district. I'm a homebody. I like local. I'm not interested in running for that. So I don't have a position on that. But the candidate who we run will have a position on that, and they'll be supportive of that.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I would hope that the Suffolk Democrats do in fact come out publicly and very vocally in favor of the New York Health Act.
Right, but let me just tell you. So the mayor person who let the elected officials do that.
Oh, absolutely.
As the party chair, I don't say this is our position.
Right.
So we let the elected officials, so people like Dwayne or Kim, they take the position and then they advance the position on Okay?
Very well. Thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, thank you. And if you have a candidate, let me know.
I might be one day.
Okay.
Hi, Rich.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kenny St. John. I ran as an independent candidate for mayor of Lyndhurst Village last year. I'm also on the leadership committee for NYO2 Dems, and I'm a Suffolk County committeeman. I have 3 quick questions. The first one, they all have to do with Lyndhurst Village. One's a little past looking, and 2 are more forward looking for the future. The first question, and this is not personal by any means. Last year, you sent out a mailer supporting the Brennan team who were Republicans against me. And I don't take it personal, I consider you a friend. Was that mailer using Democratic Party funds, or was it just your own money?
No, it wasn't our funds or my own money.
Okay, so it wasn't sent as a mailer to?
No, they sent it out.
Oh, they sent it out, okay. And then 2 questions looking forward to the future. Would you support in the future Democratic candidates for Lyndhurst Village elections?
Yes.
Okay. And would you be in favor for, because I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that Lyndhurst Village is the only village in Suffolk County that has partisan elections?
Correct.
Would you support a move to make those elections nonpartisan,
Yes.
like the other
I
villages?
believe that the village election should be nonpartisan, and because they're small enough to allow for independent groups to be active, it's easy enough to get on the ballot, and I believe it should be nonpartisan.
Okay.
I believe that since, when, Patrick? 1985?
Beginning of time.
Yeah.
Would you work with Mike Lavarado on that?
What's that?
You would work with Mike Lavarado?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
which I believe it should be.
Okay.
It shouldn't be party.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, bud.
No problem.
Shoshana.
Yes, I'm gonna make this as low as possible. Short girl problems. I'm Shoshana Hershkowitz from Suffolk Progressives. I'm also a Brookhaven Town Democratic Committee member and the campaign manager for the re-election of Valerie Cartwright. And I think that I speak for a lot of young, relatively middle-aged women. After the November election, I think that was kind of soul-crushing. It wasn't a very pertinent way. And the answer we got from so many people is, well, we need more women in office. And I happen to have 2 fantastic direct legislators between Valerie Cartwright and Karen Hahn. And I guess, you know, when I saw that Lou was stepping up and running for office, we are relatively close in age. We have children that are relatively close in age. And I was excited to see a young mom step up and declare a candidacy, similar to what happened with Christine Pellegrino. It was inspiring to think that, okay, here are people with children making it happen. Maybe I can do this too. And I was sad to see what played out in Luba's race. And I wonder if we want women to step up and run, do the ends of supporting people who don't necessarily share our values as an independent candidate justify the means when we, kind of in that action stop really capable young mothers from running for office? I mean, I think that you in Babylon have it so much better than us in Brookhaven. You've got this fairly progressive town where it's, Valerie Cartwright's supposed to be on the fourth for us.
Yes.
And I think that could have been a pretty easy win for Luba, and she's got a beautiful organizing force behind her. So why is my question? Why?
She and I have met since then, and we're working on some initiatives in Amityville, and going to continue to work together for the future.
I guess my question is, what do we get out of this as a party with cross endorsements? I mean, what are we trading? Because I mean, I feel like.
So what we get under the scenario, so I have to play under the rules, and like I said, if the rules change, I would be a much happier person, and it would be a lot less work for me, because I would be able to just have to talk to Democrats, and only Democrats. But under the New York scenario, I have to talk to these other parties. So what we get is a 12-6 county legislature, 12 Democrats, 6 Republicans, and Dwayne Gregory, the first African-American male to head up the legislature in Suffolk County. So, and that is as a result of the work that I have to do with the minor parties in order to get the support for some of the candidates like a Sarah Anker, who's running in a +30 Trump district. Mount Sinai, Rocky Point, you know the area, Sound Beach, as Republican as they come. And in order to get those minor parties, which are critical to her, because the last time she only won, I think, by about 15 votes, and those minor parties come in handy for that. So that to me is important because it allows for Dwayne and Kara and Rob, under the leadership, as well as the other legislators, to do their job and to get them elected in some very tough districts. Bill Lindsay Jr. is another one. Same thing, plus 29 Trump district. So that, if the rules change,
Okay, so here's a couple things.
then it'd be great.
I think that there are a whole lot of us that would get behind helping make those rules change. So if you can tell us how to do that, I think that many of us would. And, you know, I think that
And they missed an opportunity in
what I would like to see
2010.
is I'd love to see a fair fight in every race, in every district. And I would love to win or lose. And you know, I think sometimes we would lose, but I would rather see the ends justify the means. And I think that right now that's not who we are, and I think we can
And
do
that's
better
the
than that.
discussion
And I think
about.
that's how we get these candidates out there.
That's the discussion
And
about.
I hope we can get there.
And
I
we'll
really
talk,
do.
you and I will talk further.
I would appreciate that. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Hi, Peter. My name is Schaffer. Just want to kind of frame something real quick. I think that there's a lot of first-time activists in this room, right? There's a lot of people who are here for the first time speaking with the Democratic Party. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think a lot of people want to hold their party accountable. In fact, if you think about it, Trump won this county, Lee Zeldin's in office, Peter King's been in office for 15, 20 years. And at the end of the day, that's the Democrat